interesting, at least for many years. So we're going to jump right in. I don't think we have a full 2 hours in the meeting here. We'll try to be as efficient as possible. We'll leave room at the end for folks to update each other on other activities. Don, how you doing this morning?
Okay, I'm doing good.
Great. Do you need to take attendance or verify anything?
Yeah, I have everyone checked off that's here. So
okay, we're good
to go. Yep.
Minutes. Any comments on the minutes from last month? If not, we'll take a motion in a second to adopt them.
I'll make that motion to adopt.
Thank you, Steve.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Catherine. Anyone opposed, make yourself known. Okay, great. Climate action plan. The biggest thing on our docket for the next couple of years, and we haven't really started. Well, we've started in a lot of ways. We haven't started it with looking for a consultant yet, but Don has some good news for us.
Well, I have some news for us.
Uh-oh.
No, well, I have heard back from DEC for my contact. So they sent back we initially sent in our work plan and budget for them to review and make sure that it looked okay. They sent us both documents back. And basically the budget was fine. They made no changes to the budget. However, the work plan, just between us, I don't know why they asked us to put together our own work plan, because they basically just took their boilerplate and plopped it. The entire thing was just redlined, so it's not, and it wasn't that it was anything hugely different from what we had proposed. All the elements, we had everything in there, but I just went through, accepted all their changes, and sent it back to them. So now it's back in their hands. I didn't make any changes to their versions, so that we should be good to go with that. I am now incorporating all those changes into our RFP, our scope of work, because there were a number of deliverables that they included in that work plan, which I expected. So I'm plugging those into the RFP now. We are getting the MWBE and disabled veterans utilization plans signed by the appropriate people to submit to. The biggest takeaway from what I got back from them in our work plan is that they want to, let's see, Tara wants to sign in here. I want to make sure I get her. Okay. So the biggest thing in the work plan that they added was they do want to review the RFP before we send it out to our prospective consultants.
Wow.
So I don't know what that means. It took them 3 months and multiple emails to get the work plan and budget back to us. Once we gave it to them, I assume what they're going to want to see in the RFP is that we have included the work plan elements and deliverables in the RFP. So I'm taking good care to make sure that we have all of those work plan elements outlined in the RFP that we're going to send out to our consultant. Hopefully that does not take another 3 months for them to review. So basically our timeline is just kind of blown out of the water. I don't know. I know I will make an attempt to update that as soon as I can. Again, I want to get these other things, make sure they have everything they need to do their work first. But once I have everything sent back into DEC, I'm going to make an attempt to update our timeline, to see how all this affects that. So that's basically the update on the DEC grant for the CAP.
Okay, you're right. It wasn't really good news, but it wasn't bad news. I mean, it's moving
No.
forward. It
We're
wasn't
moving
good.
forward, yes. Yes.
Was there anything in the feedback that was substantive? Like we need to do something we weren't thinking about doing, or that we might have issues with, or they took something out that we were, we wanted to include?
No, they're, well, basically it was the RFP piece. They wanted, I was unsure about if they were going to want to see that. It does look like they want us to send them a draft of the RFP so they can look at it and comment on it before we actually send it out. So that's the biggest one.
Right, but in the actual feedback or the changes to the work plan itself,
Excuse
nothing
me?
that's in the changes to the work plan that you said that was all redlined. Was there anything in there that was substantive that we would care about in your mind?
No. There was one line in the RFP that I took out because we want to make sure that we are not asking the consultant to do any of their time into the government operations GHG inventory.
Right.
Okay, because we are not getting grant money to do any work on that, which is not a problem. I did have one line in the RFP that mentioned that, so I made sure that I took that out of there. I think those were really the only two things. Substantive changes were that one line and the fact that they want to review the RFP before we.
Right. That means the inventory we haven't really gotten far enough down to know exactly how we're going to craft the action plan. Is the action plan going to be comprehensive to include government operations and community in one plan, or because there's two separate inventories, or do we actually have two plans as well, or
Right.
a separate plan for government operations that's referenced in the main plan?
Yeah, I think that's something we can. I think it can be combined into one document. Obviously, we're going to have two different sections in it, so I think that's something we can talk about amongst us, amongst the CAP committee, and with the folks at DEC. The way the work plan they have their obviously this is boilerplate work plan that they have. Again, so I don't know why they had us go through this whole, even in the application, draw up a work plan, tell us what you're going to do.
Yeah.
They have a boilerplate anyway that they want us to use. So, but anyway, in their boilerplate language, it does kind of separate both elements out into, it reads like it's two different plans, but I don't see a problem having a single document as long as we have clear separation between which part of the document is GovOps and which part of the document is
Okay.
based.
Just curious because they made that change, but we can get back to that.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Don, for the update and carrying forward in the bureaucracy. We will continue and make progress. I mean, if the urgency of the matter was conveyed more through the bureaucratic process, that would be nice, but that's not the case. So we just have to work within the system and try to push them along. So thanks for doing that. We should send an update to the CAP committee too, to let them know that this delay, like why we haven't met with them. We did have a meeting recently of the land use subcommittee to talk about what, if anything more, we want to do to kind of be prepared to engage a prospective consultant in those aspects of the plan that pertain to land use change, emissions from land use change, agriculture, forests, and other land use. And I don't know, Jennifer, if you want to give a quick update from that discussion, or Don, if you want to, or I can, but.
Yeah, I can briefly I think the general conclusion we came to was that given that the regional group has presented emissions, sector-wide emissions, we will, for the actual inventory part, we'll just rely on their numbers. And then our contribution of the subcommittee, and hopefully, in collaboration with the consultants, would be to present the sort of implications of land use change. So if farmers adopt certain practices, this is what the reduction in emissions would look like. Or if landowners with forests can manage in a certain way, this is what the implications would be. So it helps make it, there's no reason for us to reinvent the wheel if they have kind of a standard way of presenting what they've presented, and then the bang for the buck that we can bring to it, the sort of added value is really thinking about how changes in management have implications for what policies could look like going forward into the future. So I don't know if
That's great. That's exactly right. And sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off. And you all remember that Jennifer led a team of students to do an analysis, kind of a pilot analysis and they wrote a report which was analyzing these different models and changes within different agricultural types. And that's where the real value comes from that work, is we can take those exercises and we can choose discrete kind of scenarios of very common farming practices, corn, soy rotation, or I'm not sure orchards are included in there, but livestock, dairy, and we can then say if these various steps are taken, these are the emissions implications or changes in approaches from one type of dairy farming to some other practices that are adopted. So we're not tying all of those changes directly to the inventory as a whole to say we're just using those as very clear examples. And if we can find we haven't really gotten this far, but if we can find some farmers who have adopted those, which we know are out here, we can talk to them and make them, maybe there's a case studies. So we kind of humanize the change and give examples and then say, and this is actually what happens from a climate mitigation standpoint with these types of changes based on the modeling that Jennifer did. So I think it's pretty cool stuff. And I think it'll be really valuable and will stand out from a lot of the kind of boilerplate cookie cutter stuff that ends up in some of these plans. On the forestry side, go ahead, Jennifer.
Well, I just wanted to make one more comment that part of the motivation there too is that the way the regional folks calculated the emissions from agriculture is a standardized tool that EPA uses. It's like a spreadsheet kind of based thing. And even though it might not be exactly as accurate as the modeling work that we did, it's the standard. And so if we want to be able to compare to anyone else or moving forward into the future, you don't want to create a system where nobody's going to be able to reproduce what we did.
Right.
So it's better for us to be able to just rely on that for the actual inventory. And then we can kind of add value by saying, well, what if certain things were done differently? This is what the implications would be. So.
Yeah, and also I think Jennifer, you're working with the folks, or at least one of your students, I think, is working with the folks who are doing the inventory with the idea of potentially fine-tuning or adding some of these aspects of the analysis. Am I overstating it?
Well, it's ending up, it didn't work out for my student to work with Jim, but Jim, okay, I guess, is continuing to work on, he's refocused on the forestry side now. I guess he's been in touch with the SUNY folks too. And
great. He's
trying to think about how to standardize that LiDAR data that they're working with. So
that's exciting. Yeah. So on the forestry side, we've got CAFRE, which is the SUNY ESF effort, Forestry Research Institute. That was state funded to do mapping mainly of different forest types and try to use remote sensing to figure out how we can measure climate carbon sequestration in different forest types and over time. And there's a good amount of data for Columbia County that allows us to look at the height of the forest over a different period. I think there's a 2016 and a 2021 or 2022 snapshot period. And we're talking with them about looking at shrub invasive layers and try to distinguish those from growing forests that are healthier. at least from a carbon standpoint. The trees are growing and emerging above that shrub layer, and or they're mature forests that are continuing to sequester carbon. And so that may or may not play a role directly in our plan, but we're still kind of noodling on that. When we engage with a consultant, we want to be present in those interviews to really hash out. I think this will be an iterative process with a consultant as we learn more, as they bring something to the table, as we continue to work with Jim and Caffrey and these other folks, Jennifer's students, to try to figure out how to make the most compelling, address these issues in the most compelling way in our plan that's, actionable. So that's what we have on the cap.
Yeah,
Yeah, Don.
I have a couple. If you want to take a little look at the Caffrey data, I did make some progress on that. If you got time, a few minutes to.
Yeah, I mean, let's
Just the last few days, I kind of put a little, like 2 days into it. Let me see if I can share my screen here. Okay, window. Because Jim called me too, Jennifer, and we talked about probably the same things that you were talking about about your student. So we're.
By the way, this is why you want the climate smart person in your community to be working in the planning department and ideally a GIS expert. So thanks, Don.
Yeah. So initially we previously went over all the data that we got from them. So we have satellite derived data, above ground biomass from 1990 and from 2023. And the blue is low biomass. Anything green is higher above ground biomass. And you can see the change. This is 1990. This is 2023. So you can kind of see the change in the green and blue patterns there.
What's white?
White is just there's no forest.
Trees.
So it could be farmland or development or
yes. It doesn't mean there's no trees there. It's just that the satellite imagery did not detect a significant amount of forest in those areas. So then they just simply do the math between those two layers, and this is the change in biomass. So blue is a negative number, where that above ground biomass is declining. Green is improving. So what we wanted to do was try to find out, overall, are these large chunks of forest land getting better? Are they saving carbon, improving in biomass, or are they declining overall? Not just for each little pixel, but like, is this big chunk of forest getting better or getting worse? So put a little thought into it, and through, I won't go into the nitty-gritty details, but I turned the raster into polygons and merged them and made this one huge forest cover polygon for the entire county. But of course, we're trying to find chunks of forest land. A lot of these are connected by small corridors of forest. So what I did was I made two new layers, took major roads in the county and just carved all these chunks up by county road or higher, county, state, or federal road. And then I made another layer that carved them up a little bit further by local roads. So I have two new layers that basically carve these pieces up into what I call large forest blocks and moderate forest blocks. And then I took those blocks and I did what's called a zonal statistics. So every polygon, I added up all those numbers in those raster data cells and wound up with, so dark green is a forest chunk that is improving well in above ground biomass. The lighter green is improving in biomass, but not as much as a dark green. And the blues are declining in biomass. So first of all, the first thing I notice is
Wow.
there isn't much blue here. When you're talking about large, large blocks of forest land, most of it's green. Most of the blue areas are just small chunks of forest scattered around the county. If I zoom out to this major layer, the next thing I see is the areas that are improving and mostly in biomass are through this sort of west central corridor through the county. And what is that? That's farmland, right? So I think for some reason these farmed areas, the trees are growing faster or improving more or healthier, or for some reason, above ground biomass is gaining more in that corridor area than it is in the other, the mountain hilly areas here to the east.
The question,
Yep.
this is fascinating. Maybe that reflects diminishing farming and fields being left to grow up more, or field entities that are growing up and forests are kind of coming in. Does the dark green and the light green in any way reflect the age structure of the forest? Does it sequester more at a younger age and an older age, or is it species composition, or do we not know that from this?
I don't know that yet, Dave. That's as is usual, all your analysis leads to just more and more questions.
Yeah, I mean, that was what I was thinking is all that the stuff in the light green has been fairly mature for a fairly long time. So the rate of change is very slow, even though the total biomass might be high. But if this is just reflecting change,
Yes.
these areas in farmland that have been abandoned are now growing up, that the young stuff is growing a lot faster than the old stuff.
Right. Or the farmers aren't brush hogging the edges of the field as much. They're not like planting as much corn. They're just haying it. So they don't manage those hedgerows as much. And then they're just letting things grow out into the field a little bit. Could be any number of things, but that's my takeaway. Definitely the change in agriculture, I think, through this, which is really the prime farmland in the county, is where
we can kind of look at satellite imagery over the years too, to see what's happening, right?
Yep. So that's the large what I call the large forest areas. If I go turn on the chunks that are carved up by the local roads, you get a little bit of a different picture. You still see the green swath here, but it's just a different way of computing and symbolizing the areas that are improving more than others. So I thought that was interesting. Then the next thing I did was, even though these are improving in biomass, it's not uniform. As we saw before, there are some areas of these blocks that are improving or declining. Even though the overall block is improving, there are some areas within the block that may not be doing so well. So a couple of ways to try to look at that are, so I'm trying to find spots within these blocks that are deteriorating more than others. So I basically just by symbolizing it, just cutting it down into two different categories, improving or declining. Okay, so green is improving, blue is declining. That kind of highlights some of these chunks here. This is definitely a declining area here. Let me turn off the other.
Don, while you're showing us this, what are the factors that are used in this mapping to indicate declining biomass? Is it the lack of trees? Is it the change in the height? Is it
again? We'd have to go back into how CAFRE derived all this information from their layers. To be honest, the metadata that they sent was a little skimpy. So we'd have to go back to their document that explains the whole process and figure out, what were the factors that they took into consideration here. But
right.
But there was
So I was going to say, because, I mean, all of this is fascinating in its own right. And a lot of it seems like could be directed toward recommendations, and that's the kind of, we want this to ultimately get to, action, and in many cases, the action is doing nothing and protecting an area. But in some cases, maybe it's restoration, or arresting decline, or trying to address overwhelming invasives that are preventing forests from growing. So that's why I ask.
Yeah, I'm gonna try to find one spot here. I believe this is, that is Greenport's. Yeah, I think this is. So for instance, another way of symbolizing this data using what's called focal statistics. Again, it's just a geoprocessing operation. I put the raster data through. You can kind of see these areas, these clumps of blue where the forest is declining here. And I'm going to turn on the aerial photos.
Right. There's
So this is
development.
now this is I'm looking for the Greenport water source here. I think it's that one. This is Greenport.
Yeah, I mean, Jennifer, maybe some of this stuff is really studying the map, studying the satellites, looking at it over time, trying to make sense of it in the real world and how these layers are communicating what's happening in the real world. Some of that maybe that's a project for some grad students to analyze somehow. It's do maybe even some ground truthing as well. Just a thought.
Yeah, I mean, all of our grad students take a GIS course in the spring semester, and they do look for projects. So maybe there's a set of students could do a project based on this stuff in the spring semester.
Cool.
In my class, I got interested in this again just because of this work. So we're doing one paper and lecture and reading on the relationship, how a LiDAR is being used now to think about carbon storage and how that intersects with the standard approach to figuring out tree biomass is through what's called allometric relationship. So you measure the diameter at breast height of the tree, and based on the sort of fundamental structure of trees, you can come up with an estimate of what the total biomass is, because the structure above is going to be related to the diameter. But it helps, you can get better numbers if you also know the height of the thing. And so that's where LiDAR comes in. So I'm trying to learn a little bit more about this myself, and our students are going to be
Great.
doing a little bit of work on this in the spring semester too. So, this fall semester.
And Don, it's Colin, right? He's the person at Caffrey.
Colin Bear, yeah.
Yeah, and we can work together with him and and maybe get some students involved in some of the analysis that we would need to do. But this is all really fascinating stuff, and no one's doing it. I mean, no one at this scale, at least, in terms of presenting countywide or regional climate action planning, looking at land use change like this. So I don't know where it's going to lead. But other than more questions, Don. But
yeah.
So just visually looking at these, I've been perusing these degrading areas over the last couple of days as I was putting it through. There's development. Yes, there's a huge. I found one spot in Copac near the Copac Lake where it was just forest, a large property, 20 acres. It was just forest for many, many years. And then all of a sudden someone bought it, put a house on it, and just cleared the entire land, entire property. So that was, development pressure has an effect on it. A lot of wetlands. And again, farmers, they They tend to like to have ponds on their property for water source or whatever. But you can see, and they are, as they clean out these wet areas, wetlands, and turn them into ponds, they also, tend to take some trees around the edge, and there's definite degradation in that area. And I try to find, I can't, don't want to spend too much time here trying to find the Greenport water source, but I did notice that was significant degradation in right near the Greenport water source. Not because of anything they were doing, it's just you can see that there were two areas on either side of a road that were pretty much the same as far as above ground biomass back in 1990. And over the years, for some reason, the trees around the well area, if you zoom in on the 2024 aerial photos, you can see that there are just dead trees in this area. So who knows? Maybe it's emerald ash borers have sort of destroyed that area. So something's going on in that one forest block that really looks like it. You can see some dead trees in the mix if you zoom into it. So,
all right. Thanks for the any questions or comments, further comments for Don on this?
Interesting.
It's really interesting, and
great work, Don.
And we'll continue to, this is all preparatory, right? We're preparing to engage with, and this will help us choose, to some extent, choose a consultant. And we'll be continuing to work with other outside folks like CAFRE and Don to make sense of this and present it in a clear, actionable way. So thanks, Don. Really exciting. All right, moving along. Steve Powers, tell us what in the world is going on with the Clean Energy Communities Program?
Not much at the moment, but we were invited on a call last month from NYSERDA about the future of the program. And it basically, a lot of it confirmed what Don had heard from his source also. I don't know if that was in NYPA or wherever. The old format will still exist. They are going to bring in some new high impact actions, which is exciting, of course. And they will also have this cohort program, which will run simultaneously. What they were saying is that looks like the start date will be first quarter of 2026, maybe in April, when the money becomes available. They did say that the CEC portion, it's all CEC, but the traditional CEC portion and the cohort portion fundings are coming from different sources. I didn't get an answer about how much money was available, but I suspect it's going to be a lot less than last year. I guess was 24 million, I think, something like that. Cohort will involve 10 to 15 local governments and basically concentrate on one topic each, so that per year, like they will look at involving or encouraging towns to work on a solar project, say in town, and they're going to give each town $100,000 to $300,000 grant and potentially a bonus, I guess, if they complete it. These cohorts will operate from 2026 to 2030, and there may be more than one cohort going simultaneously. But I suspect initially they'll just have one for the first year to see how it goes. And if you join, or if you're invited to join a cohort, you can actually still participate in the traditional CEC program simultaneously. So that's good news. Cohorts are going to be provided with technical assistance, and they're going to require a commitment of monthly meetings, and I guess they'll have some kind of mentoring program as well there. Now, the one thing that I didn't hear any mention of was the requirement that a town had to commit to delegating any savings from that $100,000 to $300,000 grant for future projects. Again, that doesn't mean they're not going to require that, but that wasn't mentioned at all during the call. I think for us, I can see that being a hindrance in our town board approving participation, because I don't think they would approve that, but we'll see. So basically, that's what I heard, and stay tuned. We'll see.
Cool. Thanks for the update. Any questions for Steve? Deborah?
Steve, did they mention what the possible high impact actions that they're adding to CEC would be?
No, they didn't give any indication there. So we'll see. They asked for suggestions, and one thing, when we got our last grant was we used $250,000 for putting in solar and a battery backup at our community center. So I've suggested that they've include battery, because they've been pushing that, but they haven't had that really a lot in the program. So I don't know if they will include that in the future or not. We'll see. And just to give you an example of how few people have done it, when we completed it, which was all approved by NYSERDA, the fire chief came in and said, okay, so what's your gas monitoring program going to be? Of course, we have nothing in the town code, and the county doesn't have any code on that either. So I've been reaching out to the NYSERDA, hasn't even gotten back to me. And I heard back from somebody in NYPA, and they said for these types of batteries, which are basically sort of self-contained units, they're more concerned about the monitoring smoke than actual gases. It's the bigger battery programs, I think, that's more of a concern to monitor gas, because these are more considered residential rather than commercial battery backups. So anyway, answer your question, no. I don't know.
All right. Thank you. Thanks again, Steve, for being on top of that and keeping us updated. Don, the draft Capital Region cap has been released.
Well, it will be. Tara might have a little more info on that. It will be released beginning of September, is what I was told. Tara, you there? No. So
We'll check.
they have sent me a final draft. They asked me not to distribute it outside to anyone else because they are going to officially post it beginning of September. I don't have an exact date of when that's going to be posted, but that's what they said.
And they'll be looking for comments, public comments. Go ahead,
Sorry,
Tara.
I was struggling to get my my microphone turned on. Yeah, no, you're right. So we basically are at the final review period. I think we got all the comments in, so we made some edits to it, and now we need to send it to the EPA and get their approval, which we don't know that they need to actually approve it as far, or more just kind of review it and make sure that it's meeting all the criteria. And then we're going to post it publicly. But
Great.
the big piece of that is obviously the plan, but then there's there's a portal that we've developed as well, which has kind of all the data, and it just makes it a more digestible document, as opposed to just reading a PDF, which is traditional. But it has the inventory in it where you can explore by community. It has kind of some other data in there about what communities have done. So just look for an e-blast announcement. We're going to make sure we get the word out about that, and there'll probably be a press release as well. So you should hear about it as soon as it hits the street.
Thanks, Tara. So on September 25th, Partners for Climate Action is having a mixer. I don't know if Matt Stinchcomb's on the call, or anyone else that wants to mention it, but I'm mentioning it. It's at the Caboose in Hudson. It's a cool venue if you haven't been there. It's a good group of people, and good chance to get out and schmooze. So put it on your calendar, and there's a link in our agenda. Terrence, are you on, Terrence? Anyone from CLC on?
Yeah, he's on.
Yeah, I'm here.
Hey, haven't seen you in a while. How you doing?
Yeah, how's it going? Doing
Good.
all right. How's everyone?
Tell us any updates from CLC.
Well, let's see. So I know the thing I often talk about here is our countywide conservation plan that Sam Calhoun has been spearheading. And so later this month, we expect to get our draft of that report back from the consultants we've been working with. And we'll be putting that into a final report this fall. And so as part of that, we will be kind of rolling it out. As a key part of that is implementing it and making sure that municipalities and CACs and others are aware of this plan and know how to use it for their own purposes. So more on that in the future. I know, Dave, we have our Doug Ptolemy talks this week. If you haven't signed up, I believe they're all kind of booked at this point, but it seems like there's a lot of interest in his work, and programs like that will continue doing that. That's kind of it on our front currently.
Great. Jennifer.
I see Jennifer's hand.
I wanted to ask Terrence a question. Just remind me, the Columbia Land Conservancy has developed or maybe you said that something exists and it wasn't you guys that developed it, that is it a GIS tool that assesses forest health at high resolution? Did you mention that to us?
No, but who was that? That was on one of
Someone else from your group?
who was that? I'm trying to think. It wasn't in
It doesn't matter
CLC.
who it was, but do you
Yeah.
remember what I'm talking about?
I do remember what you're talking about, at least part of it, yes.
I was just thinking that if there's a way for us, Dawn, to somehow bring that into the GIS work that you're doing, because I mean, I'm struggling with how do you operationalize this kind of data? Like, what does it mean? What are the implications? And I feel like one of the big questions that we're struggling with is degradation happening? I mean, if it's development, that's one thing, but if it's invasives or climate change or, insects or whatever, there's so many other reasons why forests are going down, and that has very specific implications for management. So it seems like that database, that's something, Dawn, maybe we should look into to figure out.
And just out of curiosity, Jen, are you thinking of that more from the climate action plan that we're working on, or outside of that?
Well, the project that the Climate Smart Task Force is doing is to begin, doing a climate action plan for the county.
Mm-hmm.
And our subcommittee on land use is looking at both forestry and ag.
Mm-hmm.
And so we're gonna want to be able to come up with recommendations on how to improve carbon storage in forests, and that. So we're trying to understand how to use this forestry data that we have that's really looking at carbon storage. But the question of why storage is going up or down is a function of so many different factors, and that unless you know what the reason is, you don't know how to manage it to improve.
Mm-hmm.
And so it seems like we need. Anyway, that's something, Dawn, we can look into and see if we can figure out what that.
Yeah.
Who at CLC would know what database I'm talking about? Because I don't even.
Yeah,
know.
and happy to check in, after this, or I can loop Sam into that as well. I haven't seen. So we've had two consultants working on this project. One has been doing the GIS work, and I haven't seen that yet. But again, we're expecting to get that this month, and I'm sure once we have all of that data, it would be a good time to circle up and see if any of that can help, and also, how else we can help.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Thanks, Terrence. Christine, are you on, Christina?
I am. Hi.
Great. Hi. Would you like to
I
give us
haven't been
an
here in a
update?
while. So nice to hear everything moving along so nicely. Not a whole lot to update. I'm sure most of you are aware the big, beautiful bill repealed most of the federal tax credits for clean energy incentives. So if anyone is on the fence about doing something, it would be prudent to do that before the end of this year. And if people have specific questions, feel free to tell them to reach out to the Clean Energy Hub, and we can kind of help them navigate that. The only other thing we have coming up in Columbia County is an event at the Spark of Hudson, October 29th at 6. It's a Wednesday. We're going to do a little kind of rooftop sunset energy efficiency workshop there with some students from Hudson High School.
Cool. Great, Don.
Yeah, Christina, I don't know if you are in tune with some of the like heat pump installers. You used to be, but I'm just kind of curious about if you have some handle on what their schedules are like. Are they like booked out through the
I think
next?
the heat pump
rest of the year?
installers are in decent shape. I think that is pretty pretty doable by the end of the year if you want to start working on that now. The thing that's getting a little harder is the solar installers. They're pretty booked.
Yeah, because we were thinking about looking at putting some heat pumps in, but I didn't know if it was worth even trying.
Yeah,
to
I
get
would
someone
say it's
scheduled before the
definitely
end of
worth
the year or
trying.
not, so.
And for the heat pumps too, there's still the state tax incentives as well as utility incentives. So you're in good shape, and I think your timeline's fine for that. Totally.
Okay.
And I'm happy to talk you through it and recommend some folks.
Yeah, thank you.
Great. Thanks, Christina. Anything from Cornell Cooperative?
Not here.
Yeah, I don't think Lindsay's signed on.
And then I want to open it up for any kind of local updates folks want to share. But before we do that, Don, we had talked before the meeting about the next round of nominees for this task force, which according to the new bylaws established a couple of years ago, we get nominated every 2 years from our towns. And then we get approved by the Board of Supervisors. So I think the default for each person representing a town would be, if you want to continue serving, then that would be the default nomination. I don't know that for sure, but if there are folks who are looking to step off and they can help to make sure there's someone to take their place, to at least talk to their town board officials, their supervisor, to make sure that they're aware that you intend to step off and that there will need to be a new person nominated for the task force to represent your town. That would be very helpful to happen now, because those approvals, I think, happen in January, right, Don?
Yeah. And there's a process. You have to be nominated by your town supervisor or town board, and they send a nomination into the county board of supervisors, and the board of supervisors actually approves your position on this task force.
So when do those nominations need to be submitted by the towns, and do people that are currently in the position who want to continue need to be renominated?
I would say start letting them know now. I mean, the sooner the better. I mean,
so the answer is yes, that we think people need to be renominated officially. So the town has to take a vote on the person, put it on the agenda for the town board meeting.
Yes.
Okay.
I think every town kind of handles it a little bit differently, Dave. It's just as long as we get a nomination from the town in some way, whether it's directly from the supervisor. Sometimes the supervisors can do it on their own. Every town kind of handles it differently. Some towns want to go through the whole process of, the entire town board.
Is there going to be any official communication from? There should be, I think, from us.
Yeah, we just at the county we just need official communication from the town that this is the person that this town is going to nominate to be on the task force.
But I think we should be. Right, we do need that. We should be communicating to the towns now, I think, to let them know that they need to reappoint or renominate the people or add a new nominee, and they need to do so by a certain date.
I can send out an email to everyone. I'll check the bylaws and and outline the specific steps. But I'll send out a reminder email after the meeting.
I'll take a look too at the bylaws, make sure we're not missing anything. Thanks, Don. And my nomination as the chair happens every year anyway, I guess, but I haven't really been paying close attention to that process. I think I'm ready to step aside as chair, and I want to continue serving on the task force, but I've been doing this for a while, and I'm sure there's someone out there who has fresh ideas and more energy and maybe more time. So I would like to continue playing a role of really kind of spending a lot of time on the climate action plan with the CAP committee and with the rest of this task force, and continue to work with all of you. It's a pleasure. But I wanted to just open up the opportunity. There's no like term limit, and I think after a while it just makes sense to get fresh blood. So I just wanted to open it up to see if there's interest in someone being. I think the way it would work is we would make a recommendation from our task force if we have interest from different people. If we have multiple people that are interested that are either on the task force or from outside, we could have a process of talking to them and then nominating someone and voting on it. We haven't done this before, so we don't really have a process. There's nothing formally prescribed because we don't make the appointment. We just it would be the Board of Supervisors. But if we could make a recommendation as to who we'd want to be the next chair, that would be great. So my request, and I can continue serving until we find someone, but I wanted to open it up. And my request would be, if you're interested, it's really not that much work, and it's really facilitating this meeting and communicating with Don in between meetings, but if someone has more time, it could become something even more ambitious than that. And that's kind of what I'm getting at. So if anyone is interested in personally serving, or they think they know of someone who might be a good chair, let me and Don know, and we'll figure out a process that's transparent for us to discuss as a group who's interested, and then figure out a way to come up with a vote. So if we have multiple people, I don't know if anyone has any initial thoughts on that. Okay. Any updates from, and so you, just one more thing, on the nominations to be renominated for your position, we'll communicate to the towns, let them know, but if you can also communicate whether you're staying or not to your town board, that would be really helpful, just so it's on the agenda, and we're ahead of the curve there. So any other updates, local updates? Terrence?
Just quickly, Dave, is there anything for those of us on the advisory committee to do?
I don't
in terms of
think so. I mean, I really don't think so. I'll check the bylaws and just make sure if there is anything.
Cool.
We're just
and thanks for being the chair for so long. Thanks for doing it.
It's my pleasure. I enjoy working with everyone, and I wish I had more time. That's the big thing. It's just time is a constraint for all of us. But I'm really excited about the climate action plan, getting that going, and really doing something special with everyone here, and hopefully continuing on a whole bunch of other projects and being a part of it for a long time to come. So any other updates from the home front? What's happening in September? What's happening? There's a lot happening in September. Douglas Tallamy's coming. He's talking at Cornell Green tonight. And what else is happening? All right. There we go. Steve, tell us what's happening.
Well, we have a grant from the Hudson River Estuary Program to do a natural and cultural resources inventory, and we've been notified. And we've gotten the next steps memo, which involves all the things that Don was talking about, minority and women-owned business, veteran stuff, proof of insurance, all this stuff. But of course, Keegan and I, who wrote this grant proposal, have to rely on Ron Mott, our supervisor, to process all this stuff. We think he's done it, but we're not sure, and definitely know that he's struggled with it, and have been talking to people with in the contracts office about it, because it involves using two different computer programs, the state financial system and one other one, which I can't remember right now. But anyhow, we think what I did was to try and move things along, I notified them that I thought these things had been submitted. Please let us know if anything's missing. And we have not heard anything more. I wonder if anybody has an experience with how long it usually takes to get your estuary program representative actually talking to you and having an identity, because we really I understand the contracts to the town are going to be dated July 1st, and we'd like to get moving on this.
Yeah, I can say Ron was in here we were sharing stories about the whole process, Kathy. So yes, we are both making progress.
Okay. I'm glad he's talking to you.
Yes.
Okay. Thanks.
Cool. Steve, did you have something?
Yeah, I since the emails went out to the supervisors, I don't know if everybody on the call had actually seen the hazard mitigation plan final stuff. So I'm going to share it here. And there you go. Those are the links to the approved plans, which apparently have been FEMA and the state have approved. So the emails that went out to the supervisors asked them to get a resolution approved at the town board level to be sent back. So people should look out for that.
Great. Wow.
And by the way, they did finally incorporate our changes that we had requested in the final document. So that was good.
Yeah, look forward to looking at that. Okay, great. Thank you.
Sure.
It's quite a picture on the cover. John.
Yeah, Steve, could you just, I missed, where are the links to these plans?
They're in the chat.
It's
You
in
mean
the
the
chat.
hazard mitigation?
Yeah, put it in the
Oh,
chat.
okay,
Yeah.
got it. Sorry.
No worries.
I'll send out an email call to everybody after the meeting too, just so those who are on the meeting will get the links too.
Thanks, Don. All right. So it's the beginning of September. We might get rain this weekend, which should be great. So do your little rain dances. Great time to plant plants. So put some trees and other things in the ground. And summer may be winding down, but there's plenty to do. Plenty to do in the backyard. So enjoy it, enjoy the weather, and keep up the good work. And we'll talk to y'all in a month, if not sooner.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.
If not sooner.
Thanks. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.